Hello, bros. We're back with Young Adolf by Beryl Bainbridge, a 1978 novel, which is coming to a conclusion soon. Just not going to be in this reading. Chapter 26. Two figures appeared at the far end of the street, holding storm lanterns. They stood motionless on the corner, giving no sign that they intended to approach further. From somewhere at roof level, Adolf heard the incongruous ring of a bicycle bell. When the call came seconds later, it was surprisingly muted, a low wailing that hardly rose above a murmur. Adolf, who had expected to hear a pistol shot or the thrilling blast of a trumpet, strained his ears to catch its drift. They are coming. The night men are coming. Quick, urged the doctor, but already Adolf was clinging upright to the stack, only too eager to leave the precarious post. Judging by the commotion from the downstairs room, the scuffle of boots and muffled cursing, he had no need to warn Meyer. He had just managed to turn about and was lowering himself feet first through the trap door when a hand gripped him by the hair. Too late, cried Cephalus. The bastards have come from both directions. Hauling Adolf skywards again, he kicked the trap into place, and forcing Adolf to lean at an acute angle against the roof, flung a weighty arm across his shoulders. They lay cheek to cheek on the wet tiles. On his re-entry through the skylight, Adolf had struck his forehead on the corner bricks of the crumbling chimney stack. He couldn't be sure if the moisture beneath his face was rain or blood. The flimsy guttering beneath the toe caps of his boots was all that stopped him from sliding earthwards. Locked in a comradely embrace with the doctor. The doctor. It was impossible to see what was happening in the little court, but now the sounds of the battle were clearly audible. Doors slamming, children crying, tables being overturned. Then voices were heard directly beneath them, and Meyer's voice raised louder than all the rest. God damn you, he was shouting over and over. God damn you to hell. What do you got, bruv? By moving himself fractionally from the doctor's side and tucking in his chin, Adolf was able to peer through a gap in the leaking roof into the room below. The scene he witnessed was so melodramatic in content and so jerkily enacted that he felt he was watching a show at a moving picture house. Against the wall were ranged 4 or 5 women, each clutching a child to her breast. Facing them and holding a lantern at shoulder height was a burly man in a raincoat. Between the trembling women and their prosecutor stood Meyer in an heroic inching his shillelagh. There were other persons in the room, but they were merely onlookers. The man in the raincoat was deliberating upon which child he should snatch from its mother. Meyer was waiting to strike him dead if he took a step forward. At that instant, a boy, some 2 years old, clinging to his mother's neck, uttered a piercing shriek of terror. Adolf remembered suddenly a day in summer when, in a field, he watched a dog chasing a dozen rabbits up a grassy slope. There had been no reason to suppose that the dog would be swift enough to catch any of them, and then one rabbit out of all the rest, as if sensing it had been chosen for death, froze in its tracks and screamed. Pouncing, the dog was on it and breaking its back in the grass. Meyer, caught off balance by the piteous cry behind him, wavered in intention. The man in the raincoat held out his hand authoritatively. Passively, the woman delivered up the child. Carrying the boy under one arm, the man with the lantern made for the stairs. The room was plunged into darkness. Raising his head, Adolf saw it was almost dawn. He gripped the edge of the stack and pulled himself to his knees. Above the river, wisps of scarlet cloud trailed across a strip of dark blue sky. Below him, a procession of children, some holding babies in their arms, accompanied by 5 or 6 officials at the most, were being herded towards a black Maria parked at the corner of Scotland Road. What do you got, Brobs? Explore the fun in real life stream. What the hell does that even say? Below him, a procession of children, blah, 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 blah. In every doorway along the length of the street stood men and women, perfectly silent, watching the children go. Descending into the house, Adolf and the doctor found Meyer seated at the broken table in an attitude of dejection. He looked up at Cephalus, approached, and raised his hand in despair. Aye, aye, he wailed. We saved a few, comforted the doctor. Next time it will be more. He patted Meyer clumsily on the shoulder. Who were they? Asked Adolf. The men with the lanterns. Civil servants, answered Cephalus. Men from the city corporation. I don't understand, said Adolf. There were hundreds of you, and not a dozen of them. They didn't even use the police. Let the minority act with enough authority, cried Meyer bitterly, and the majority will walk like lambs to the slaughter. What do you got, Brobs? He told Adolf it would be more prudent if he went home alone. It would do him no good to be seen in this vicinity with either the doctor or himself. The boy he had met earlier at Cephalus's house would see him safely to Stanhope Street. Wear this, said the doctor, throwing a cap into Adolf's hands. You want to hide that cut on your brow. Ask Mary O'Leary to bathe it with salt and water. The youth with curly hair escorted Adolf through the back streets of the town, indicating by signs and gestures that it was too dangerous to use the main thoroughfares. Arriving by a devious route at the bottom of the St. James Road, he led Adolf to the gates of the cemetery. Adolf stood his ground. The boy urged him forward. No, said Adolf. He was exhausted enough as it was, without stumbling along the winding paths of the graveyard. The boy pointed across the cemetery towards the catacombs and the steep wall of granite that rose to street level. He mimed the climbing of a cliff. Out of the question, snapped Adolf. He strode purposefully away around the curve of the railings and began to ascend the hill towards Hope Street. After a moment's hesitation, the boy followed, crossing to the opposite side of the road and glancing nervously at Adolf. He walked abreast of him up the hill. Such precautions, thought Adolf, were absurd. Meyer had delusions of grandeur. He had spoken as if he were plotting a revolution, and all he had done was to position a few men on a few rooftops and ring a bicycle bell. It wasn't only the wretched inhabitants of Argyle, or is that Argyll? Argyll Street, who had been cowered into submission by a handful of men acting with authority. Meyer, too, had bleated like a sheep at the first scent of the wolf. Thanks, buddy. I needed those words, Bubba. He had turned warily into Lower Stanhope Street, the boy still keeping pace with him, though still on the other side of the road, when he saw several policemen approaching from the opposite direction. He faltered and looked across at the boy, who had stopped and was clearly judging the distance between himself and the advancing constables. Making up his mind, the boy shouted something to Adolf and began to run towards them. Hello, Robs. Adolf was convinced the boy was making a futile effort to reach the safety of Mary O'Leary's basement. He too began to run desperately in the same direction, though he had no such conviction. He argued to himself that one could hardly be arrested for running at a policeman. If he failed to reach the basement in time and they accosted him, he would denounce the boy and say he was chasing him because he was a pickpocket. Panting, various fantasies rushing through his mind, the blue uniforms looming closer, he pursued the youth and was startled to find that he had swerved down an alleyway, and they were no longer on a collision course with the forces of law and order. Hurry, hurry, shouted the boy, who had now stopped at the base of a stunted tree that grew beside a brick wall. Urging Adolf to climb onto a withered branch, he pushed and heaved him aloft. Stubbornly, Adolf clung to the tree and refused to go further. He hadn't an ounce of strength left in his body. The blast of a policeman's whistle sounded from beyond the alleyway. Springing for the wall, he scrambled over the top and dropped into a backyard. The boy landed lightly as a cat beside him, and dragging him by brute force towards the door, opened it and thrust him inside. There, sitting astride his bicycle in a dimly lit passage, was the man in golfing shoes, and beyond him, his hand on the rail of the stairs, waited Meyer. A tremendous hammering began on the front door. "Take him upstairs," said Meyer to the man on the bicycle. "It's no use," protested Adolf. "I prefer to give myself up. I have done no wrong." "Your papers are not in order," said Meyer curtly. "Go with Michael Murphy, and he will show you how easy it is to reach home safely. Remember only to close the door behind you. You will be in your bed before 5 minutes is up, I promise you." Michael Murphy ran ahead of Adolf up the stairs. On the second landing, they passed a woman of frightening pallor, sitting on a deck chair, nursing a coal-black baby. The woman nodded and wished them good morning. She seemed oblivious both of their villainous appearance and of the noise issuing from the hall below. The English, thought Adolf, are a nation of eccentrics and fearfully dangerous. No wonder they ruled an empire. Reaching the third floor, Michael Murphy opened the door at the end of the passage. The room faced on to the dance hall opposite. "I'm not climbing along window ledges, cried Adolf passionately. The next moment, Michael Murphy laid violent hands upon him. He was turned to the wall and hurled towards it. He lifted up his arms to shield his face. There was a sound of paper ripping, and then he was lying across the mattress in Meyer's top room. Remembering to close the door after him, he crept down the stairs to the second floor. Without bothering to remove his cap or his coat, he flung himself onto the couch and fell instantly asleep. Chapter 27. Bridget decided to take the baby to the park on Sunday afternoon for an airing. Hearing the pram bumping down the steps, Mary O'Leary poked her head round the basement door and asked, "Are you going to visit your cousin?" "I'm away to look at the ducks. I'll go out of my mind if I stay cooped up there much longer." "I'll walk with you," said Mary O'Leary. "There's someone I have to see." She hadn't a dinner to prepare, not today. Meyer was off his food. Bridget walked up and down the pavement while Mary O'Leary stoked the fire. Across the road, a well-dressed man had stopped to read a notice attached to the railings of the church. "The more I think about it," said Bridget, as they walked up the boulevard against the bitterly blowing wind, "the more I'm inclined to swallow my pride. I've nothing to lose." She was talking, as usual, about writing to her mother in Ireland, and suggesting that bygones be bygones. Mary O'Leary, who had taken part in this conversation many times before and never tired of it, agreed she hadn't. It seemed to her a miraculous thing to have a mother, even one not on speaking terms. "I've darling Pat to consider," said Bridget. "Alois isn't a man to rely on. He studies young Adolf more than me. I never saw a penny of Adolf's wages yesterday, and by the look of him this morning he lost a lot during the night." "He was out gambling, was he?" asked Mary O'Leary. "He was out somewhere, that's for sure. You should see the state of him. I'd counted on putting a few coppers aside for a rainy day. Eloise could be off into the blue tomorrow, and then what would I do? Suffer and wait, said Mary O'Leary. That's all we're good for. They crossed the road and went through the ornamental gates into the park. It was too cold for crowds. I should have kept on with me singing lessons, fretted Bridget, gazing discontentedly at the brutally pruned rose bushes spaced at intervals along the borders of the gravel path. When I was 16, a gentleman in Dublin said I had perfect pitch. She felt she'd been cut back in her prime and would never flower again. I was good with the needle, recollected Mary O'Leary. As a girl, I could have gone for a milliner. You told me, said Bridget, and she tried not to look at the destroyed ribbons swinging from the remnants of Mary O'Leary's bonnet. They discussed Mrs. Prentice's Elsie and a woman who'd been caught putting a sliver of glass in her husband's scouse. Scouse? The hell's a scouse? And whether Dr. Cephalus had a woman or not. It would be like keeping company with an ashtray. Mary O'Leary had once observed him going into that shop in Brownlow Hill, the one selling books wrapped in brown paper covers. Bridget said she had no doubt Eloise was a regular customer at the same counter. They were all brutes. Neither of them mentioned Meyer in this connection. Hello, Brobs. When they had walked twice around the railings of the pond, Mary O'Leary said she'd be off. She preferred streets to parks. It made her feel lonely with only pieces of grass and bits of trees to look at. When she had gone, Bridget sat down on a wooden bench and with a twig poked back the wedge of newspaper that had worked free from the gaping side of her sole of her boots. Of her boot. The gaping sole of her boot. Several boys ran past, rolling old bicycle wheels along the path. Approaching her from the other side of the pond and cutting directly across the grass was a tall gentleman comfortably clothed against the weather. When he was only a few yards from her, she thought it was the same man she had seen outside the church. Tipping his hat to her, he asked, "Have you by any chance seen a lady in a brown fur coat pass this way?" "I've not," said Bridget, "but then I've not been looking." She wasn't a fool. She looked across the expanse of the park. There wasn't anybody in sight. "I'm a respectable married woman," she said, and rising, she let the brake off the pram. "Hello, Brobs." "Let me take you into my confidence," said the man hurriedly, and he removed his hat altogether and stood there, twirling it round and round by the brim. "I have reason to believe we have mutual friends. I am anxious to get in touch with them. Would I be right in saying your husband is a man with exceptionally blue eyes?" Bridget wasn't sure what to do for the best. He looked a gentleman, but then one could never tell. She thought she detected the faintest hint of brogue in his speech. Eloise was always so secretive. He said he was out selling his old razors, but he could be up to anything. She didn't want to land him in trouble. She began to walk away, pulling the pram behind her. "Wait," called the man, "please." He wasn't a bad-looking fellow. He had blue eyes himself and a well-trimmed beard. "The person I'm referring to," he said, "is the devoted husband and son. I have seen him going into a certain hotel in the town. I'm very anxious to contact him." "Well, I can't help you," said Bridget. "My husband is 6 foot tall, dark as the ace of spades, and he doesn't like me talking to strangers." Swinging the pram round the wheeled, swinging the pram round, she wheeled it rapidly towards the gates. When she looked back over her shoulder, the man hadn't moved. Chapter 28. Adolf slept for 15 hours and woke to find himself on the floor behind the sofa. Rising, he surprised Eloise and Bridget at their supper. "He's returned to the land of the living," cried Eloise without bitterness. Adolf thought Meyer must have had a word with him. When he saw his reflection in the upstairs mirror, it was apparent that for once Eloise had behaved sensibly in removing him from the couch to the floor. His coat was torn at the elbow and hem and covered in a mixture of soot and dust, as were his hands and face. He wouldn't have looked out of place down a coal mine. Worse, he discovered a score of insect bites that extended over his chest and arms. When he had scrubbed himself clean, he carried his coat and shirt downstairs and dropped them on the landing beside the aspidistra. I still don't know what that word is. Aspidistra? Later, he would take them into the backyard and flap them about in the air. Don't tell me you've lost your shirt, said Bridget, seeing the bare throat beneath his jacket. I need a pair of scissors, he said. I'm unable to take off this hat. Bridget was amused at having to cut the cap from his head. She stopped smiling when she saw the reason for it. Whatever was Mr. Meyer thinking of, she scolded. Fetching a bowl of warm water, she added a dash of vinegar, and with a scrap of cloth began to sponge the congealed blood from his forehead. You certainly had a night on the town, said Eloise admiringly. It must have been hard work to keep pace with you. Adolf scratched himself and said nothing. The cut wasn't deep, but he had a lump the size of a half-crown above his left eyebrow. You best wash your hair, Bridget told him. You smell like a chimney sweep. Adolf asked if he could have a word with Eloise in private. Grinning, Eloise followed him on to the landing. When shown the insect bites, he smiled more broadly than ever. Next time, he said, you want to be more careful which little lady's bed you step into. Nauseated by the implication, Adolf protested that he had spent the entire night on his feet. I need a bath in Lysol and my clothes disinfected. This isn't a Salvation Army hostel, shouted Eloise, growing annoyed. Adolf went unhappily up the stairs to the bathroom. Taking off his trousers and jacket, he attempted to open the door set with colored glass. He was unsuccessful. It had been nailed into place. Contenting himself with the thought that if he had succeeded, his trousers would undoubtedly have blown into the yard below. He shook his clothes over the ancient bath, then he washed his hair and dressed again. When he returned to the living room, Bridget sat him at the table and brought a comb through from the bedroom. Since his arrival in England, his hair had grown. You can't go to work with that old lump showing, she said. They'll think you're a fighting man. Parting his hair at the side, she began gently to comb a section of it downwards so that it concealed the cut on his forehead. You may be wondering, said Adolf, why I haven't given you my wages. I did wonder, yes, said Eloise dryly. I've been thinking things over, Adolf told him. You've been very generous with me, very patient. I'm not an easy person to live with. Eloise looked at him suspiciously. He seemed to be sincere. I was telling the truth, continued Adolf, when I said Angela offered me the money you sent her. I didn't ask, believe me. You know Angela, she was never one for traveling, and as things stood, it seemed the best way out. But now I think I ought to make a clean breast of it to the authorities. I'd rather you didn't go into details, said Eloise hastily. It's none of my business, though I could give you a word of warning. Whenever I made a clean breast of things, I found myself in jail. Perhaps in my case they were justified. It takes two to make the bargain, murmured Adolf. Quite so, said Eloise. I had hoped that after steady employment at the Adelphi, you might want to come into the razor business. He didn't believe what he was saying, but felt it was expected of him. He was sure his brother, if engaged as a salesman, would either lose his box of samples or inadvertently slit a prospective buyer's throat. What do you got, bruv? Hey, it's Blissy.
What do you got, buddy?
I don't think it would suit me, said Adolf. But you see my difficulty. I had intended to give you every penny of my wages, but I'll need the money for the ticket, won't I? What's he saying? Asked Bridget. He's not going to give us any money, said Eloise bluntly. It would serve no purpose to insist on Adolf's handing over a proportion of his wages for food. In the long run, it would be cheaper to subsidize him. In his head, he worked out that on Adolf's present rate of pay, it would take several months for him to save the sum required. "Why isn't he going to give you any money?" asked Bridget grimly. She flung the comb down onto the table. "He's going back to Austria." "Ah," said Bridget, trying hard to conceal her delight. "And he's never even been to New Brighton." "I wasn't thinking of Austria," Adolf said. "I had in mind somewhere further off. He didn't say how much further." Not go home?" Eloise looked at him in astonishment. It was one thing to scrape the money together for the fare to Linz, quite another to talk of distant regions of the earth. He was damned if he was going to let Adolf live at his expense if he was thinking in terms of South America. "You forgot," Adolf told him. "I have no home, not since Mother died." His eyes filled with water as he fought to restrain himself from scratching a spot on his neck. He had a bite under the ear that was crying out for attention. "What the devil's up with you now?" asked Eloise. "I have my feelings," said Adolf between clenched teeth. "Sheer bloody sentimentality," muttered Eloise. Bridget remarked that it was a pity Adolf was leaving so soon. She hoped she sounded regretful. Already she was thinking how much it would cost to buy a few yards of fabric to recover the couch. She'd burn the old one or make it into dusters. "He'll probably be here for months," remarked Eloise bleakly, "possibly years." He had no time for Adolf at all. The man was inefficient, arrogant, and, as he said himself, difficult to live with. Blasted difficult. And yet there was something about the conversation that disturbed him. He didn't like it. He had married Bridget, fathered a child by her, and still he felt she was less familiar than Adolf. She belonged to the present, and Adolf belonged to the past, and at this moment the past seemed more real than either the present or the future. "This delivering of parcels," he asked irritably. "For one," said Adolf. "And how much are you tipped each time?" "2 pence," lied Adolf. It was not that he deliberately sought to deceive Eloise, but he wanted to buy himself a new pair of trousers as soon as possible, and a jacket. It was all right saving his wages toward his fare, but maybe Eloise would consider the tips as something different. He wasn't going to go without a new pair of trousers just because Eloise wanted more money to put on the horses. For the next few weeks he resolved to fetch and carry for M. Dupont like a gun dog. He would crawl on his belly if need be. It was unendurable to be wearing verminous clothes. And there's only, 2 more chapters to read. But I'm not doing it tonight because I don't have to. What is this? All right. Anybody still here? One viewer. Yeah, one viewer, bruv. 2 viewers. Oh my gosh. What do you got, bruvs? This book sucks, I gotta admit. I mean, it's absolutely pointless. And I understand that, according to this, wildly broadly funny, Bainbridge has succeeded in the seemingly impossible task of making young Adolf interesting and human without giving him any sympathy whatsoever. Oh no, what? At once funny and appalling, splendid occasions of high farce, rich in prophetic ironies. This book is not rich in anything. It's rich in wasteful text. I mean, what a waste of paper, honestly. There was one or two chapters that were decent, but the whole story makes no sense. I know nothing about Hitler's youth, so I don't know if any of this pertains to anything. I believe he had a brother named Alois, but I don't really know anything about him. But this story just seems dumb as fuck. No, it's a shitty book, but I mean, I've already read, 140 pages? 146 pages, and there's only 16 or 14 more left, so might as well finish it. It seemed like an interesting idea. Why anybody in 1978 would write about Hitler and try to make it a comic book. Not a comic book, but a book of comedy is beyond me, but this lady was somewhat of a insane person. I mean, if anything, it makes Hitler look good. I'm not sure if that's what she was doing, but she seemed like a psychopath, so I mean, I think he's what, 22 or 23 in here. Makes him seem like any other 23-year-old in the world. I doubt it. I mean, I don't think she was born until. When was she born? I don't think so. I don't think she was born until later. Well, how old was she when she was writing Beryl Bainbridge? No. Comes the sneezing attack again. Beryl Bainbridge. Oh my god, I'm gonna sneeze again. Beryl Bainbridge. Thank you. Yeah, she wasn't born till 34, so if she knew Hitler, she would have been. When did he die? 45? She would have been 11 years old. Hey, buddy! Apparently, she became a huge hoe later in life. Was having affairs with numerous men. But they also said she was sexually assaulted at some point. And so maybe that turned her into. She died of cancer at age 75, wore her hard won recognition lightly. Right. Should have gave her some vanilla ice cream, buddy. She's one of Britain's best loved novelists. If she was, I mean, I don't know for what. This book is rubbish. Where's the one passage I liked? There was one passage. Really good. Really good. And I have to read the passage leading up to it. Iodoform. I don't know how you say that word. Iodoform, Cephalus told him, has fallen into disrepute. At the time, it was one of the wonders of medicine. Unfortunately, it had such side effects as you mentioned. Adolf was scandalized at this casual admission of malpractice. He was more than ever convinced that physicians were an ignorant aristocracy kept afloat by witchcraft and the pathetic need of relations to witness miracles. She thought it was helping her, he said accusingly. Right, I agree. Doctors are kept aloft by witchcraft. I believe that. They're terrible. Terrible. Where the hell was the... What is this? Is this where he sees the phantom? At that instant, a man's head, wearing a checked cap and trailing a strip of white cloth like a pigtail, floated horizontally and disembodied above the churchyard wall as Adolf gazed open-mouthed at this apparition. The head drew level with a wooden gate, and he saw a man on a bicycle flash past, his two-tone golfing shoes whirling around and round as he pedaled furiously down the lane. Meyer, who was now walking away, didn't appear to have noticed anything out of the ordinary. Before Adolf had time to call out, the checkered cap had vanished altogether, and Meyer was swallowed up among the trees. Except it was a real person, and they were monitoring him because they were apparently trying to save children from being taken by the authorities. So they were sneaking around, and he kept seeing them and thought he was seeing people like a schizophrenic, but he was not. I think chapter 17 and 18 were like well read, but they really had nothing to do with anything. Well written, not well read. Right, yeah, so this book sucks. But as you can probably, the now reduced to $1 and $3.98 back in the day would attest to. But I came across it at the store, and I was at the thrift store, and I'm like, can't hurt to read it. It's short, and it's only taken me, 5 days to read it in increments. Right, so yeah. I only paid, I think, 50 cents for it, maybe. 50 cents. But yeah, I think the best part of this book are these 2 stickers. I'll never remove them. I love them. Yeah, because it told me this book is going to suck. This said it's going to suck, and this says it's going to suck bad. What was the original price? $9.95, so it was cut. Yeah. To a third of the original, and then it was finally just reduced to $1, and someone bought it, and then it sucked so bad that they gave it to the thrift store. And then I got it for 50 cents. In episodes of disarming comedy, at every turn, young Adolf becomes involved in ludicrous and embarrassing situations, so much so that he would never, for the rest of his life, mention his laughably awkward visit to England. Yeah, I'll have to give it away to sell to sell it. I'll have to give it away. Let's see if Hitler ever went to England. Did Hitler ever go to England? Yeah, there it is. Let's see. It is highly unlikely that Adolf Hitler ever went to England. The claim that he visited is based solely on the unverified memoirs of his sister-in-law, Bridget Dowling. Hey, Bridget is mentioned in there, which most historians dismiss as a fabrication designed to cash in on his fame. According to his disputed account, Hitler lived in Liverpool for several months from November 12th to April 13th with his half-brother Alois and his Irish wife Bridget, allegedly to dodge Austrian military conscription. However, there is no independent evidence to support this story. During this period, which is a relatively lost year in his well-documented life, reliable evidence suggests Hitler was living in a homeless shelter in Vienna. Hitler was not a world traveler, and his visits outside of German-speaking territories were generally limited to military service in Belgium and France. During World War I and official state travel to countries like Italy and Czechoslovakia before World War II, he had very little knowledge of Britain and is not known to have ever set foot on British soil. I mean, I think there's ways to find out if he ever went to England. You just check the port of entry things on whatever that's called. What's that called? Family Search. FamilySearch.org. Well, I might as well turn off the light. Look at that. Now I can make shadows. Adolf Hitler. Let's see. Let's see if there's an Adolf Hitler in the records. Shadow puppets, bruv. Adolf. Search for Adolf. Of course, every time I show these, it always shows my personal information. Then I have to edit the video, which I hate doing. Adolf Hitler. I wonder how many different Hitlers, Adolf Hitlers there were. Adolf Hitler. Be great if I could spell it here. There we go. I love it. Family Search. Why am I on Icelandic? What the fuck is this? Why would I want Icelandic? Oh no, don't look at my password. Oh, it doesn't show it, but every damn time I show personal information. Hitler. Zero records for Hitler? Come on now. They must have scrubbed them all. There he is, Adolf Hitler. Arkansas. What the fuck? He was in Arkansas in 75. That's... I should write a book about... I should do that. Just have like a web page, all the Adolf Hitlers. So there was he died in 1975. Why the fuck is there a thing like this? Why is this always in some other language? So there was one that died in 72 in Chicago, one that died in 75 in Arkansas, 34 in New Jersey, Cuyahoga, Cleveland, 1945. Lots of Adolfs. That's crazy. Massachusetts, 1975. 1956, Massachusetts. Damn, there's Dr. Adolf. Lots of Hitlers. Because I'm reading a book on young Adolf, which is apparently a fictional take on the memoirs of his sister-in-law, who claimed that he spent a couple months in Liverpool. Maybe he was the father of the Beatles. That would be a better book if someone claimed he was the father of all the Beatles. So I wouldn't say I'm researching Hitler, but Bliss asked if the author knew Hitler. I would say no. But they're claiming that there was no record of him going to Liverpool, which is why I'm looking on FamilySearch.org, and there are a shitload of Adolf Hitlers, who lived in the United States. It's crazy. Adolf Hitler, Adolf Hitler, Adolf Hitler, Adolf Hitler. Just page upon page of Adolf Hitlers. Yeah, I guess. North Carolina. What the fuck? I wonder how many Hitlers are still in America. I've never met anybody named Hitler. I've never heard of a person named Hitler besides Adolf Hitler. North Carolina, Washington, New Jersey again, Louisiana. What the fuck? Man, Houston. There's basically been an Adolf Hitler that lived in every state. San Francisco. Just a common German name like Smith. Why isn't there an English band named the Hitlers then? I mean, there's a fucking the Smiths. But there's not a Hitler. The Hitlers. I've never heard of a single person named Hitler besides Adolf Hitler. In fact, I'm going to look it up. How many people in America? How many people in the U.S. are named Hitler? Hitler. Fewer than 100 people in the United States had the surname Hitler as of around 2010. So all these damn Hitlers that lived here, what happened to their names? I mean, we just seen just dozens and dozens of Hitlers. Evansville, Indiana, Rockford, Illinois. I mean, all these fucking people were named Adolf Hitler, and there's only 100 Hitlers left in the whole country. That sounds like some bullshit to me. I mean, we see how many guys were just named Adolf Hitler, and that's can't be a common name. Milwaukee, San Diego, Little Rock, Riverside, California. Milwaukee again, same one. Marietta, Georgia. Everywhere there was a Hitler. Hitler. Cuyahoga. So now there's only 100 Hitlers, but in the past 100 years, there were 100 guys named Adolf Hitler. What's this? Reichsstuckerer Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, Trenton, New Jersey. I think it's a conspiracy, buddy. Washington, D.C. There's the sign. He was living in D.C. After the war, after his death, he was living in Washington. Mobile, Alabama. Or is it Mobile? How the hell were there all these Adolf Hitlers? South Carolina, Seattle. There was even one in Seattle. Stamford, Connecticut. And now there's only 100 Hitlers in the whole country. But everyone just fucking changed their name or just stopped breeding after Adolf ruined their family trees. Canton, Ohio, even in the town that has the Football Hall of Fame. Yeah, look at all these Hitlers. And they're all named Adolf. Of course, a lot of these are being repeated, but still, we've counted at least 30 or 40. Whoa, Spain, 1963. Colombia, too. Death in April of 2023. But he wasn't born until 1956. Didn't they claim that a lot of the, not claim, but didn't a lot of the Nazis go to South America? Right. All were born females. Maybe they all moved to Liverpool. Allegheny City. 23rd. There was a Adolf. So everybody that's in America that's named Hitler is all named Adolf Hitler still. Yeah. There's one that died in 2008. Where did he die? How many Adolf Hitlers are on findagrave.com? Findagrave.com. Adolf Hitler. Refine the search. Come on. Really gonna fuck me over here? Come on. Adolf. Of course, all these would be overseas. No! You son of a bitch. Adolf Hitler. All right. How many Hitlers do you think are in Find a Grave? One, and it's him. See, this is weird. Now it's totally a conspiracy. But then again, would you put Adolf Hitler? Maybe they hit them all. Now, you don't think this is weird? That there's only one Adolf Hitler on the entire findagrave.com. When all these people we've seen died in the last 100 or so years, and there's not a single one in a cemetery. Or maybe all their stones were stolen. This is fucking weird. 2020, Adolf Hitler in Indiana, Pennsylvania. Adolf Hitler died 6 September 2024. Mount Carmel, Wabash, Illinois, 2021. Bowling Green, Kentucky, Adolf Hitler. Adolf Volky Hitler. Whoa, England, United Kingdom. But this one wasn't born until 66. How the fuck would you name your kid Adolf Hitler in 1966? What the fuck? Hey, I'm going to name my boy Adolf. You don't think that's weird that there's only one Adolf Hitler in the entirety of Find a Grave? This guy was... Where was he born? Adolf Hitler, male, 59 years old. Died January 30th of this year. And... doesn't say which city. Probably, I don't know, how do you say that? Leicester? 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 Waukesha, Wisconsin. There's Volky again. South Dakota. Adolf lived in San Francisco in 1893 to 4. Adolf died in Arizona, 2023. Midland, Shropshire, England, October 26th. Mr. Adolf Hitler. Florida, Crystal River, Cumming, Georgia. All these Hitlers. This is insane. Where are they all buried? Yeah. This is kind of like a revelation. Wonder if they block them from the site just so they don't appear and have people vandalize them. But why would you name your kid Adolf Hitler after he was dead? Brother Adolf Hitler died June 6, 1944 in Alabama. Or that's where the obituary was from. But maybe they are all in the same cemetery, the Hitler Cemetery. What day did Hitler die? Did Hitler die? April 30th, 1945. (2013). There's the Adolf. Now, I can see if he was born before that Hitler, but this guy had an excuse. He was almost 100 years old. Maybe that was Hitler. 29. So that would have been 95 years old. How old was he when he died? 56. So he was pretty old. I thought he was younger. So he was born in 1889. I thought he was like 35. Adolf Hitler. Hey, honey, how about we name our boy Adolf? There he is, the Fuhrer of Germany. Born April 20th. I doubt it because it's showing people you can't stop. So I bet you there's people that changed their name to Hitler. Like people who think they're Nazis, or not think they are, but are Nazis. See, here's one in Michigan. I could go track this one down. August 13th, 2024, he died. Vancouver, January 30th. There's a lot of Hitlers, Adolf Hitlers that died this year. Iraq. How the fuck? What the fuck? There's Hitlers in Iraq too? What kind of bullshit is this? Oh man. This is really bizarre. Norway. The Norwegian Hitler. Died in 42. Nuremberg. That's strange that he died in Nuremberg. January 14th, 1946. West Berlin. There it is. There's his death. West Berlin Registrar. I bet you there's a bunch of them too. Let me change the But did he go by that same name? Or was he always with an F? Adolf Hitler. Probably just as many. Adolphus. It's weird too because the guy in here named Meyer, who is supposedly the landlord for Alois, calls him Adolphus. Death, April 30th, 1945. Adolphus. Detroit! Come on now. 1944. And look at all the names. Mrs. Florence Savage, Mrs. Bessie Kowalski. None of these people have the same names. I don't understand this. Eva Braun, there's his spouse. Oh, maybe these were just obituaries, but it doesn't explain why the frick. Moscow, Michigan. Are you serious? That's way out in the hinterlands. Dolphy. We'll just call him Dolphy. I wonder if there's a dolphin Hitler. Search records. Dolphin. Hitler's dolphin. Dolphin. Dolphin Hitler. I will say no, there's no dolphin Hitlers. Dolly? Or is it Dolphy? Dolphin. Cyril. No, there Delphine. No, there is a dolphin Hittle. What the fuck? Dolphin Hittle. Dolphin Hittle. Delphin Hittle. I think they just spelled it wrong. There's nobody named Dolphin. Delphin. Hey, Dolphy. So if there's only 100... There's his brother right there, isn't it? I think that is his brother. Hamburg, Germany. Half-brother, sorry, of Adolf Hitler. He was born to Alois Sr. in 1882. So this is Hitler's dad. I will stop judging. How the fuck do you go from this guy to the dude with a goddamn Charlie Chaplin mustache? Alois Hitler. He and his wife's bodies were removed from their graves at Friedhof Leonding in 2012 and the stone destroyed. If there was anything left of the bodies, they are probably in an ossuary someplace. What the fuck? So somebody took the bodies in 2012? Is that what they're saying? He's got a sister named Paula. Angela. The fuck is all this? So his father's name was Heidler. Maybe they all went back to Heidler. Sister does look like him. His sister looks like Charlie Chaplin. Angela. Yeah, she does look like him. Where is she buried? Germany. It's weird. All these Hitlers are in Germany. Ida Hitler. Alois Hitler. What's her shirt? Where was it? I did not look at it. Oh my god, this chair hurts my ass. Holy fuck. Damn wood. There we go. Sit on the cushion. Let's go back there. Look how jovial she is. So she lived during... wonder where she was. She was living in Austria when she died. That is nice. It's a lovely shirt. What the fuck is she holding? Ida. That's his half sibling too. cute little baby. Otto. Let's check out Paula. Paula seems insane. She looks better in her picture than... She looks actually normal there. Catfish. Paula's a catfish. What is that? That's her fucking... Is that the cemetery? Sister of Adolf Hitler. On December 1st, 1952, she moved to a two-room flat near Berchtesgaden, Hitler's mountaintop retreat on the German-Austrian border, where she lived in seclusion under the last name of Wolf until her death on June 1st, 1960. Her grave marker was removed in June 2005, and someone else was buried in this plot, where Paula had been buried for 45 years. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Hey, I'm gonna take your grave, buddy. So that's his mother? Clara? She looks Jewish. Paulzel. Wonder if her grave was taken too. Oh, that's right, they said they both were taken. She grew up thinking that Eloise was her uncle, even though officially they were second cousins, and she never stopped calling him uncle. And she does mention that in the book, actually. So basically, a lot of what she wrote in the book is factual in this novel. So she obviously was reading the memoirs or whatever of that one lady. Who was it? Eloise Jr. So wait, why isn't Eloise Jr. listed under her children? Oh, so Eloise and his son Eloise Jr. would soon have a major argument, and Eloise Jr. left the family never to return. Son Edmund died of measles a short time later. Wonder if that book's available. Not that I'm going to read it, but the fuck name did she go by? eBay. I'll put it on eBay. What was her name? Angela? No. Just put under Eloise. Eloise Hitler. Allegedly, this is him. Don't look anything like that fucking picture, dude. That is, I would say that's not him. It looks nothing like the picture we just saw. Oh man, that dude looked like he got fucking in a car accident. Who does she look like? She looks like some actress. Where was that guy? Maybe it does. I mean, that looks nothing like this guy. This guy looks like he got his fucking head caved in. Looks nothing like this dude. This is the father, right? Yeah. If this fucking... Looks like a villain from James Bond movies. I mean, there's no resemblance at all. I mean, don't they think that people actually look him up? This guy looks absolutely normal. This guy looks like he got his fucking face caved in with that crooked ass mustache. I wonder if anyone bought any of those. So I'm gonna write to them if they did. Oh, that's right. You can't see who bought what anymore. Oh man, that's fucking terrible. It looks nothing like him. I hope no one bought that shit. It's embarrassing if someone bought it. Oh, that was preposterous. It was nothing like this guy. My internet is so slow right now. Couldn't be because I'm broadcasting on the phone and then using the Mein Kampf. $230. What year is that? 1940. I see no Alois, so at least no one bought that. What was the sister's name? Becky. Hey, Becky. Oh, shit. Bridget, that's it. Bridget Hitler. Guess I could have just looked at Eloise Jr.'s. Oh, shit. Bridget Hitler. So she wrote a memoir? Is that what they're saying? There it is. Memoirs of Bridget Hitler. What the fuck? But how did she... This must have came out before 79 because this book was written in 78. There she is, too. There it is, young Adolf. $34. Yeah, no one's paying that much. Wonder why no one buys this book. It's 10.11 there. What year is this? It's a 1979 hardcover. The Memoirs of Bridget Hitler. Look at her face. That's fucking brilliant. That's the only picture you have? Come on. Illustrated. Irish sister-in-law with this hardcover reference book. This illustrated memoir offers first-hand accounts and personal insights. So it must have came out. Bridget Hitler memoir had to have come out before 78. Oh, so her name was Bridget Dowling. When did it first come out? First published in 79. So how the fuck did she read it before it came out? Maybe she had the publishers. How the fuck did she read it before it came out? Maybe it was serialized somewhere. I'm getting sleepy too. All right, see ya.
Bye, buddy.
Really intrigued how she got this book before Wait, it's on Google Books. See if there's any. No. I wonder if there's a PDF of it. The Memoirs of Bridget Hitler. Goodreads. Want to read. What do you think? Only a few pages are about the supposedly stay of Adolf Hitler in Liverpool, but that theory seems to be refuted by some historians. For the rest, it's mostly about the stay of William Patrick Hitler in Germany and the death of Geli Raubel. I have for a long time been fascinated by the whole story of the Liverpool Hitlers. Bridget and her son William Patrick, and so I had to read this book when I heard about it. What should be explained is this. The book was never finished. It peters out virtually mid-sentence, and before that happens, you are overwhelmingly aware that much of what is written is complete and utter nonsense. Why have you given it 5 stars then? I hear you all cry with one voice. What the fuck is this guy? Pauly Shore? Because there are little flashes of truth, maybe but mostly because it's very funny. I cite the part when Bridget tells young Adolf as he is leaving Liverpool to return home that his big bushy mustache should be trimmed. Next time she sees him is in a newspaper, and seeing his mustache comments, he always did go too far. I think we can all agree on that. This is great. Now I gotta get this book. I just don't want to pay that much money for it. Bridget Hitler. I'm surprised it hasn't been reissued. What the fuck? $91. No. I can't pay that. All right, I gotta go.